Today we have got Dr. Divya Rajput, the CEO of JSS.
Yeah, so that's JSS Science and Technology Entrepreneurs Park. We are a 20 years old organization set up by our Department of Science and Technology in a PPP mode, as we call it, public-private partnership mode.
Awesome. And today we will be discussing anything and everything around startups in India and in Ireland. And we met up a couple of weeks back at the National AI Meet, and I don't think there would have been a better platform to meet and interact. And we had a healthy discussion in terms of what's happening in Ireland and how is the startup industry coping up and taking shape in India as well. So taking the discussions from there, so we wanted to discuss in detail in terms of how we can look at in terms of taking a parallels between India and Ireland in terms of the startup ecosystem. Ireland looks at a lot of tech giants who are coming into this country and who are actually putting in a lot of resources. Having said that, yes, there are challenges in terms. But yes, because of that, the tech ecosystem has grown exponentially in the last 7 to 8 years.
Absolutely.
Because of that, there are a lot of spin-offs and a lot of startups which predominantly are tech-based startups. But having said that, it's not limited to tech startups. The tech startup is yes, the majority of it, and with the onset of AI, definitely a lot of discussion happening around that. But having said that, there are a lot of traditional startups in terms of manufacturing, product, dairy, and agro-based startups as well, which are there in the country.
So, Vijay, quickly to ask, so we just discussed about, maybe a need for a bridge fund. And I discussed with you how India has looked at this as a major issue. So, while there are a lot of angel funds and angel networks and syndicates which come forward to support startups when they need that bridge fund. So, typically our incubation fund or our pre-seed fund has been about a crore of rupees. So uh, you know uh, and then beyond that, startups obviously had a problem till they could raise a pre-series A. But then our government created something called a fund of funds, and the fund of funds was deployed through early stage VC funds. So primarily, I saw the same set of VCs setting up a smaller VC fund for early stage startups to support early stage startups, and that's what actually bridged the gap. Plus, angels coming together that bridged the gap, and the startups became smarter. So they started to raise multiple rounds, even before reaching to a pre-series A. So, even before the traction goes higher, they started to raise, multiple rounds, because what they believe is that, they want to capture the network of the investor, not just the money of the investor. So, because they want to capture the network of the investor. So, more the investors, and if they have a very sorted fund management in place, then it's good to have more people to spread the word for them. So that's how at least the bridge fund thing has worked in India. So also we just spoke about a lot of corporate. So I understand there are 90,000 tech companies which have set up base in Ireland. Now, what is the state of corporate innovation? I mean, is corporate, engaging with startups to co-create products? I mean, is that collaboration happening?
So the two things which happen, which I have seen happening in Ireland, which I could have missed out some things also, uh, interacting for the last 4 to 5 years in the startup space in Ireland. Uh, yes, there are major companies like say Microsoft, you got AWS, you got Google, you got other companies, I like Dell, IBM, everyone uh, are there. They are supporting the startup ecosystem. So for example, Google runs something called Google for Startups. Microsoft has something called Microsoft for Startups. So predominantly they will give you the uh,
Cloud
basic idea in
credits.
terms of how startups work, and they will give you the ideas and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then they will try to give you free credits.
Yeah.
And definitely that's how the corporate ecosystem works in terms of they just want to be there and make sure that every startup uses their platform. And in case it takes off, yes, then they get the benefit out of that. Even if that doesn't happen, at least they are there to actually showcase that they are supporting the ecosystem. That's one. Secondly, when you look at the whole way in which the startup industry works in Ireland, is that there are a lot of incubator centers and accelerator platforms which happen. Say, for example, there is Dogpatch Labs, there is Guinness Enterprise Center, Huckle Tree, which becomes a co-working space for many people. Baseline, which is a new one which has come up in Dublin. These are the three or four major things which is in Dublin. And then you have got places like Cork, wherein there is a Republic of Work in Cork. And then there is a RDI hub, which is there in Kerry. Then there is Watershed in Galway. There is something in Waterford and other places. So few things. And other than that, there are the digital centers which are there, which also works towards the for creating that ecosystem for startups. So predominantly the action happens here, and even the tech companies, or not just the tech companies, even the other players, the corporates, they come and do partnerships here in terms of supporting the startups. And other than that, they try to be part of all the major events which happens, and then they try to be supporting with sponsorships and stuff like that. In addition to this, as I said, they run their own programs in terms of making sure that all these startups start using their platform, especially the software platforms, as the SaaS platforms, and Azure and your AWS, and yeah, and Microsoft have now started pushing for Copilot, and then you got Gemini coming from Google. You got OpenAI saying that now they are moving from Chat GPT. Now they are talking about the Strawberry thing, which is like O1 series and stuff like that. So everyone has, everyone has got their own. I will not say
Offerings,
does.
yeah.
They want, everyone wants to be there. They don't want to miss the bus. So everyone is there. It's and if you look at the way in which Ireland startup ecosystem has been evolving, I would say that it's very similar to what was happening, say, 10 years before in India, or 10, let's say 10 to 15 years before, when there was huge surge of in terms of discussions happening around startups and
Right.
how things can shape up. And then the government came together and put up something called Startup India. And then a lot of initiatives started coming out under Startup India, and then it really gave a shape in terms of the way in which things took off, and then a lot of unicorns coming up every year from there. So yes, I think Ireland would go in that direction. Yes, it's just a matter of time when that threshold would be beaten, and then companies just take off.
Sure. No, that's a very interesting perspective. In fact, I was that time serving in Ministry of Corporate Affairs when our Startup India happened. So, 2016 was momentous. And then even today, in fact, we are celebrating, the 10 years of Make in India, because it was today when our honorable prime minister, he gave the theme and the push to manufacture products in India, because that is something which brings more self reliance. So what we understand, and I visited parts of Ireland when I was there for, I think, almost 6 days. So what I understand is that Irish are beautiful people. I mean, I really like their warmth and their openness, and also the fact that they've done something very smart. Uh, you know, they've brought the right population in the country. So they've brought the tech talent in the country, uh, by of course incentivizing corporate, but then that has also brought a whole economy around students who come to Ireland for tech education. And then and it's always good to have educated people around, people who can actually push the economy, and also eventually translate to tax revenues. But then and also I have been reading some reports about Irish startups, and it looks like in last 1 year or 2 years, at least 10 of them have done an IPO at the New York Stock Exchange. And a couple of even gaming startups have gone out from Ireland, which is amazing, So I was always intrigued, is it a natural progression for them that they understand how to scale up? Or is there push from the government side that they know how to push up? I mean, how to accelerate their journey, their startup journey?
The startup journey is very interesting here in terms of because as I said, it's about reaching that threshold. Once they reach the threshold, I have seen that the company just take off and they just go places. And one advantage, or maybe the one common factor in terms of how the companies which have grown big or scaled up and they have started doing well, is that the proximity to US, and the not just in terms of the travel time, or the
Yeah.
proximity in terms of entering the market to
Okay.
the US, is very been very lucrative for the Irish startups, because Ireland being a very small country with 5 million population, your test marketing happens in Ireland. And
Right.
once you see that, okay, if the product or your service has taken shape, then US becomes the nice platform to wherein you can go and actually try to scale it up. And when you scale it up in US, and if they see potential in you, there are a lot of people who will jump in and start investing in you, because US, the game changes completely for them.
Yeah.
The VCs and the investors and even the angel investors, their pockets are deep in terms of they themselves are like venture capitalists.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the culture is so, I would say, so strong in, so I have worked with UT Austin in the past, and, I was working on their programs in Southeast Asia. So I had the opportunity to visit and also be part of a couple of, entrepreneurship programs with them. And I think it's amazing because, you can feel entrepreneurship in the ecosystem. So, I'm sure the Walmarts of the world are big enough now, but that's a separate story and that's a good thing. But I think that's what they understand well. So, US entrepreneurship definitely, has an edge. And it's also the culture, so it's a cultural thing. It's a how they understand how to, capture market, and they're great with marketing. So, no doubts about it.
Yes. And just to add to that, in terms of, if you look at the salary brackets that happens in US, yeah, it's once you are, say, you have a bit of experience and you are there in the market, everyone start talking about 300K, 250K, 300K. That's a salary range that you're talking about. Okay.
Right.
Which you don't see in other parts of the world. Okay. So
Mm,
if you are smart, and even those regular uh, office goers can actually take some money out of that and start investing in startups, which becomes actually the small angel investors in a country like
sure.
Ireland. Actually, the
Yeah.
office goers in US can start taking out money, say 25, 30K, 50K, and then they can start pumping in the money into the system, which is actually
True.
really
Yeah.
great if you look at market like that. And it will be great if people who work in US start looking at other countries to start investing in startups. It will be a win-win for both
Yeah.
the startups as well, and for them as well, because the equity that you can get when you invest such a smaller money in comparison would be higher when you go to a smaller country, and put the money into that startup like that. But this, having said that, Ireland has seen success. If you look at Stripe, one of the biggest fintech, and it's been scaling up exponentially, and it's
Yeah.
still it's in a very nascent stage if you look at it. And they have, that's an amazing success story of the Collison brothers. And as you said, it is not just one sector or one domain. It's
Yeah.
fintech. I've seen in sports. Sports tech has been amazingly doing in Ireland, and they have scaled up from there, like Output Sports. They have got other Kitman and other players who are there. Then there are smaller players which have started taking shape, like precision sports and stuff like that. And and you said gaming. Gaming is another player where people have started doing.
Absolutely. And I, this time when we attended the National AI Summit, the National AI Meet in Galway, I think I also saw a lot of good work happening in the healthcare space, especially, innovative products coming up in healthcare space as well. So I think research is being translated to commercial products now. So even I see that as a, emerging space in Ireland as an emerging sector.
Yes, absolutely. You have nailed it. Actually, medtech, or if you want to put it as health tech, it has
Yeah.
been doing phenomenally well. And with the amount of pharma companies which are based out of Ireland, there are a lot of people who have the domain knowledge in terms of pharma, and at least basic knowledge around the medicine and other things. And plus, the whole country, if you look at, they are focused in terms of maintaining a healthy lifestyle, because if you look at the lifespan of people also, it's on a higher side, because that's because
Oh,
they.
yes. In
Yeah.
fact, it was beautiful to see a lot of elderly people walking and traveling themselves. So, it's highly unlike that I've seen in other European countries. Even in UK, I didn't see too many people, on their own. In fact, I was happy to see, senior people walking through the roads and just walking with a little stick, and they being able to travel on their own, do their own stuff. So that's, I think, a great way to even age, I would say, in your own hometown or in your own country. So, yeah, of course, that looks great.
Yes, so the health perspective for them is really on a very higher
Mhm.
domain, if I say, compared to other countries and other the similar age group in other countries. And to just add to that, so the football that I play on Fridays, I have people who are at the age group of 50 to 55, and
Wow.
they run equally good as a 20-year-old, 25-year-old, and then compete and they play. So that you can see in that. And health tech, definitely, because of all your wearables and things happening around that. And it's not just related to sports or something like that, but I have seen even people talking about anything and everything around your the way in which the body grows and things like that, right from menopause to in terms of how wearables can help in terms of conceiving and everything. And the beauty of the startups in Ireland is that I've seen people taking a very, very small idea and then start building around that and creating a solution out of that, which in fact, when you go to any of the pitch events and you listen to them, you would think, oh, this is something which you would have seen at many places, and you all would have also thought about that. Oh, is it something that would give some impact, or should you really get into a startup like this? You just keep thinking around the boundaries, but then you can see people who have actually taken it up and pushed and seen if it can actually make a difference. So, which is really good. And yes, health tech, sports tech, fintech. These are the two, three areas which I've seen that it has taken shape really well. And then with now the surge of artificial intelligence, I think these three sectors will
Sure.
keep growing phenomenally.
Yeah, and also, they have the right tech talent, as I said, because the universities have also, I think it's been pretty fast for the universities to also catch up on the trend, and they are pretty strong in providing the tech talent to the industry. So, it's a good symbiotic relationship as one can see. So,
Yes, I and I would say that it's a vicious circle in a positive way, because tech talents get attracted to Ireland. The tax rates are not low for a regular income earner, though the corporate tax are less. So the government benefits from the income tax from the people. Because of the tech talent and the tech companies, you attract more people to come and do masters here. So the universities end up getting more students, and yes, that it definitely is money coming into the country. And then this students, when they pass out, then they try to be part of this again, the tech ecosystem, and again it contributes to your income tax and everything. Yes, but what happens because of all this thing is that the community which is getting built around this has been amazing, and a lot of similar thought process, similar minded people are there, and then they start discussing about ideas and stuff like that. And Yes, and then startups get incubated from there.
Sure, that sounds so good. Yeah, very interesting. So, Vijay, you have been part of the Indian ecosystem at large, part of the Indian corporate ecosystem, and you now, supporting the startup ecosystem in Ireland. Do you see a possibility to do maybe, an incubation for Indian startups? So, when I say incubation, what I mean is, you know, and developing startups for scale. So that we actually have some global products come from Indian startups. And if that requires them to set up an Irish company, of course they'll do that. But then, get into the culture, I may say, of thinking for scale. So, all the advantages that we've seen, and see, I think the advantage we get in India is a great market. So, maybe vice versa. So, what I mean to say, maybe have a launch pad or a soft landing partnership between India and Ireland, where, our Indian startups can learn how to scale from Irish experience, or maybe by deep diving into an Irish experience. And then Irish startups can absolutely, look at accelerating or bringing their products to India if they want to, if they see that, yes, there is potential. So maybe helping them do a initial business model validation, and then, them looking at India as a, because as I said, India is a great market. So, yeah, maybe, looking at that. So do you see potential for that exchange?
Absolutely, Divya. Actually, it's you have put it in a very comprehensive manner. Okay, so if you look at this is something which we had a discussion when one of the entrepreneurship discussion happened at the Embassy of India in Dublin, in terms of what can we do in terms of bringing the Indian startups to Ireland. Yes, there are some challenges which are there in terms of the tax rebates that you can get in terms of which I think maybe if both the governments talk to each other and they can figure out a way in terms of providing some tax incentives around that, I think that can be dealt with separately, which I don't think which will be a major problem. But yes, the advantages for Indian startups when they come to Ireland is one is in terms of they get a European base to see in terms of whether their thought process and the products and service actually works in a different market. That's one. And when you get validated in Ireland, automatically you are open to Europe. That's straight away the European market opens to you. And with the common travel agreement and everything which is there, we still with the Brexit, yes, there is a challenge entering UK. But when it gets uh, verified, I would say, because now getting the verified tick in social media is like a big thing. So once your startup comes to Ireland and it gets verified with the way in which it taps into the market and it gets approved by the users and everyone in Ireland, you are open to Europe, you are then open to UK. And since predominantly, if you have seen that the startups in Ireland, then their next place to go is US. Then for these startups who have now come and shown and proved their metal in Ireland, it becomes easier for them to enter US market. Yes, it is easy for Irish Indian startups to directly go to US, but because there are yes, still challenges in terms of entering the US market because of the norms and conditions and stuff like that, this would be another route in terms of maybe looking at in terms of entering the US market as well. So there are a lot of advantages for an Indian startup to actually enter Ireland. UK, Europe, and US market opens up straight away for them once they show that they can do something. And going back to the point in terms of what Ireland startups can benefit out of this is that definitely one when you look at India. it's a cost-effective market in terms of tech development, not just tech development, right from everything in terms of marketing and in terms of digital marketing and everything. India is a market wherein you can, because the economy of scale is great in India, so you can always look at India as a place where you get, I would not just say cheap tech talent, but quality tech talent at a cost-effective rate. Though the salary brackets and the per hour rates have started growing up phenomenally in India as well, but still comparatively, it is a place where you can go for a comparatively cost-effective talent, but the quality of the talent is still at a very high level. That's one. Secondly, there are only two places in the world that you can do a test marketing at a very high level. That one is China, one is India, because that's the two places where you have the population base is really high and the tech talent is really very high level, and the usage, internet usage and everything is on a very high level.
Yeah,
So India becomes a ready-made market where you can go and test. And the beauty of India is that states and the union territories that you have, the beauty is that every market can be seen as a European market, actually, European country, and
absolutely.
the consumer behavior is different in every state of India. So it can be great case studies for Irish startups to go and do their test marketing and see in terms of the consumer behavior in all these states, in terms of how they vary and what are the pros and cons that they can see, and what is the learnings that they can take from there, and then which can help them to improve and enhance their products or offerings, and then they go back to the market again in terms of showing that okay, we have got done test marketing in say 20 or 25 states of India with different consumer behavior, this thing, and then it becomes a huge amazing case study. Because now the thing is that now with all this data being a privacy around data is huge thing, which should be, and the GDPR is a big talking point in Europe. So, and now with AI wants to learn from data, until and unless you don't have case studies, you cannot ask your AI system to learn from something. It can just go to internet and just hope that it is learning from the right places. But if you can actually create your own case studies going to other countries and you have your own data points, then it becomes easier for you to develop your AI systems also comparatively faster with
Absolutely.
a really good amount of data point feeding to that.
Very interesting perspective, Vijay. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So, I guess we've done half an hour. Do you want to
Yes.
wrap this up?
Yep.
Yes.
So we will come back to this in terms of how things shape up and keep
Yes.
going. And I personally feel that there is a huge ecosystem which can be tapped between Ireland and India, especially in the startup ecosystem, not just tech, but across different platforms. And I think it will be great if something can be done around Ireland, India startup ecosystem.
Right. Perfect.
Yes, and thank you, Divya, for taking out time and sharing your perspectives.
Right. Thank you, Vijay. Thank you for having me over. It was great meeting you in person and a great, bouncing off thoughts with you. So, thank you.